Texting.
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 Texting. Texting. Texting. Texting.
Texting.
Texting.
Mark, Will, and Tomek present
Texting.
Hello, all you textual deviants, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 2 of Texting, your favorite podcast for textual deviants. My name is Black Power in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Y yo soy el sueño de la razón en Taipei, Formosa.
Very good, very good. So this is somewhat of an impromptu podcast, inspired by the little art talks I'm giving here in St. Petersburg. So this is like my dress rehearsal where I get to meet the great Sueño and have him fine-tune my ideas and my mind going into tomorrow's, or Sunday now. It's been delayed to Sunday. My conversation with St. Petersburg's bourgeois educated class.
Oh, shit. So it's a trial run. This is a
Yes,
dress
sir.
rehearsal.
That's right.
A lot of pressure on me to fine-tune things, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I've just been too overwhelmed with creating the PowerPoint to actually reflect. So I've been too, defining each slide and shaping things. So
Did
I've
you already
managed to
say
get-
what our topic is?
no, I have not.
Oh. Well, we're
I did
back.
s-
We're
yes.
both back in black. If you're watching, you can see that we are clad in black as if we were attending a funeral.
And I want to show this really fast. Arsenal are playing in the Champions League final tomorrow, so big up the Gunners.
And it's a black jersey.
Well, this particular one, yeah. They're typical, They wear red. so-
Red, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So why black for this? It's a tournament or something? Or
This is clubs these days, they'll pretty much come out with like 8 different
Whatever.
jerseys a year
Oh,
just
I
to
see.
sell. So
Right.
there's like the official home jersey, which is red.
Yeah.
Then they'll have one main away kit, and then so this is actually the away kit from a couple years ago.
Okay.
But yeah, a historic season for the Arsenal. So anyway, today, I've been doing a collection of series. Wow,
A series
uh,
of collections.
I've been doing a collection of talks with my colleague Daria about different colors thematically. And then once we've chosen the color, we dig into that and like choose which particular art pieces inspire us from that color. So this Sunday we're talking about black, and one lowly rainy afternoon in St. Petersburg several years ago, I visited the General Staff Building at the Hermitage, which I hope you will visit when you come. And while walking there with my friend Carlos, friend of the show, he mentioned the paintings, the black paintings by Goya, which he saw in the Prado in Madrid. And ever since then,
Yo también. Me too. You
Yes.
didn't see them?
I've only spent like not even a full day in Madrid, so yeah, I would
Okay.
definitely love to, but I was just passing through. But just the way that he described them as these kind of like madman's ravings on his walls, which that's a bit pejorative, and we'll get back and like discuss how we want to characterize them. But just the basic explanation he gave me like was very intriguing. And the last couple of weeks, I've had my first opportunity to look at them, read a little bit about Goya's life, and that's why we are where we are now, is just in this discussion of Goya's Pinturas Negras. So maybe you want to mention now your experience with them.
Well, okay. So I've always loved and admired one of these 14 black paintings in particular.
I'm guessing I
and that
know
is-
which one.
Go ahead, tell me.
Saturn Devouring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saturn eating his children, or Saturn eating his son, as it's sometimes translated. It's actually alluded to in my story collection or short fiction collection, Jigs and Tales of Baudry, one of the characters mentions having been impressed by it in his youth. So yeah, I've always loved that particular painting, at least, what I saw in art books or online or whatever, right? So when I was in Spain, of course, I took the opportunity to see it in person, and it was, I want to say I was underwhelmed because, the condition of these works, as you have learned, is, I don't know, somewhat, how can we put it? Well, literally they hacked these murals off the walls and put them on canvas. So as you can imagine, there's some in that transfer, there's some loss of something, right?
Of course, a lot.
And
I mean,
and
we'll
it's
get into
also
that, yeah.
and it's also old and not well preserved and faded and so on, but it's still a very arresting image. And I think it was smaller than I expected also, but I was impressed with some of the other 13 images, in particular the Witch's Sabbath. I think that was, if I remember correctly, that was one of the larger ones, if not the largest. And that, I think I'd seen it before in a book or online, but it was impressive, maybe more impressive to see in person.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, without even having been there, I can kind of guess that it could have the potential to be underwhelming, because it's like the whole myth and the conception is so exciting and harrowing that to see them just in a hall and somewhat anesthetized, I can understand that, not being able to capture this fantasy that we may have. But yeah,
and also I remember, I mean, maybe it was the lighting of the Prado or whatever, but they're really dark too, like when you see Saturn eating his son in a book or online, the blood red is very vibrant and bright, but as I remember, when you actually see it, it's kind of dull and not as it doesn't jump out at you in the same way, like it is, they're called the black paintings for a reason. They're very dark, but that in itself is interesting. I think the filmmaker David Lynch was fascinated by black, and he did like a series of black paintings too, but like all different shades of black. Maybe you and I, or other non-painters or laymen wouldn't even like be able to distinguish the different shades, but he apparently was able to do that and found like nuance in all these different tints of black. I think he even painted the walls of his apartment black when he was working on Eraserhead or something.
So anyway, write down the word shades, because sometimes we start our talks by just showing the variety within one color, and I think that might be fun for me to just look at some of the kind of shades of black.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Should we jump in?
Yeah.
To the slideshow?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see those slides. The title of this episode is Paint It Black. Paint It Black.
Paint
all
it
one
black.
word. All one word.
Paint it black.
Yeah.
Sorry. Blacky. Balake. Sorry. You know that reference?
No.
Balake.
Oh, Balake. Yeah. Key and Peele. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Key and Keel.
All right. So we're going to kick it off by briefly showcasing a few other iconic black paintings to various degrees of blackness. First, we're looking at the famous Russian painting by Kazimir Malevich, The Black Suprematic Square.
I feel like I've seen this.
It's super famous, bro.
Maybe you shared it in a previous episode, but yeah.
I mean, it's super famous in Russia. I assume it has some international notoriety as well.
It looks familiar. I assume you saw it in person then?
Yeah. It's in the Russian Museum in St. Petersburg. I don't want to
The
linger too long on
Hermitage
that.
or
No, the Russian Museum. It's called.
it's called the Russian Museum.
Hermitage has like two main buildings. One is just like a huge repository of like Western art, you could say. Everything from like, Egypt to Rembrandt and so on, like, and room after room after room, like that's in the palace. Then across the square, there's the General Staff Building, which has like a huge collection of like impressionistic stuff, and it's like my favorite part of the Hermitage because it's much less populated and still has a lot of like really incredible art and like more of the stuff that I like anyway in terms of impressionism. And then you've got the Russian Museum, which now is split into two parts, which is like all Russian paintings. And that's
at a separate location or
two separate locations now.
Okay.
In St. Petersburg, and it's just split chronologically in terms of like the first half of the paintings that they have and then the latter stuff.
So this is pre-revolution, 1915.
It is, but it would be in the newer Russian Museum, which is like just a rock's throw from the Church of Spilled Blood.
Oh, from what?
The Church of Spilled Blood, which is like the famous church that everybody knows in St. Petersburg, where like some Tsar was assassinated, like right outside. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Because I don't have much to say about that right now. The execution of Lady Jane Grey.
Well, hold on. Is it
all right.
Impressive in person? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, like, for example, even when it wasn't like life changing.
Yeah.
It's interesting when we look at it that you see all those cracks in it, so it's not like pure black, and you wonder how intentional that is, or if that's like a sign of decay or something.
Oh. Well, are they noticeable IRL?
I don't know. Sorry.
You don't know. You've
I don't
seen
remember.
It, right?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Okay. My goodness.
Yeah. Sorry. What you drinking, by the way?
So
Tea?
testy. No, just straight up water.
Testicular. Okay.
I don't get it.
Next painting we've got, I don't know, testicular.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The execution of Lady Jane Grey.
This is fascinating. I had not seen this before, but wow.
Maybe you probably have something more fascinating to say than me then.
I just read your description. It says the painting interprets the moments preceding the death of Lady Jane Grey, who on 10 July 1553 had been proclaimed Queen of England. I didn't know that. Only to be deposed 9 days later and executed on 12 February 1554. So this is pre-Elizabethan age. Jane is sometimes referred to as the 9 days queen due to the brevity of her reign. I don't know how I mean, maybe I forgot about this particular historical moment, but that's very interesting. And the painting itself is also quite stunning. We see Lady Jane Grey blindfolded and, about to be put on the chopping block, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously, like, if we do talk about black, I mean, the contrast, and I'm going to introduce a couple terms later, which I am still learning myself, but...
Chiaroscuro, stand up!
Exactly. Is that how you pronounce it, though?
Maybe
or is
it's
it
Chiara.
Yeah.
Chiaroscuro.
I kind of feel like it would be. And then the other term is like, what, tenebrism? Did you see that?
Yeah, that would have to do with shadows.
And so that's more about using a lot. Should we save that for when we get there?
Maybe so. But anyway, this wow, that's fantastic image.
Okay, this painting is a Russian favorite. It's kind of like it's like a trendy picture almost in Russian art, in the sense of like a lot of people, like even my wife, or I had a former colleague, it's like their favorite painting. It's very atmospheric. This guy Quingy is he has a lot of paintings, I guess, like this that are playing with light and very atmospheric and just satisfying paintings. So you'll have to check out some Quingy. There's just an exhibition of his work. I think he's Azerbaijani, but he kind of belongs to like the larger Russian umbrella, you could say. So, and this painting is one of the most famous paintings in the Hermitage, and it is Rembrandt's Return of the Prodigal Son. And it's quite a large painting in real life. When I was talking to Giovanni, you remember me talking about Giovanni in the past? He's like guy who, I've got these family friends in Bordighera, Italy. Giovanni and Germana. Maybe I've heard
Oh,
talked about
yeah,
them before.
uh-huh.
Yeah, you've met them. You've met them on like the calls and stuff. Anyway,
Right.
Giovanni's really passionate about art, and yeah, like he said, if he ever comes to St. Petersburg, like, this is what he would be like drooling after, this painting. So yeah, I'll just define these two terms really quickly. Chiaroscuro, Italian for light dark. So what, chiaro is light, or I guess,
That
right?
would be, yeah, that would be,
Like
I mean,
Robert's wife is Chiara, so maybe there's that. Maybe that means light as well.
oscuro is obscure,
Oscura,
dark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So is the artistic technique of using strong contrasts between light and shadow to give objects a three-dimensional look. And you can definitely see the three-dimensionality in this painting. I feel like it's really, I don't know, does this painting seem like a good example of three-dimensional? Or when I say three-dimensional, do you think more about like perspective paintings that are like, have like a really
I mean, I'm
strong...
more focused on the lighting, you
Yeah.
know, like the contrast. And of course, Rembrandt is the master
Yeah.
of that technique.
Do you like Rembrandt? I mean, I know it's kind of a crude question, but
you know, I've been to the Rembrandt Museum in Amsterdam, and
Nice.
yeah, there's a lot of great stuff there. He's not one of my favorites. I would say I prefer Goya and, you know, other painters, including Van Gogh and so on. But yeah, some of his work I like very much. Some of it is too, I don't know, when I think of him, I always think of brown rather than light and dark. There's just kind of a plain brown sort of drabness that doesn't always resonate with me. But this one, I like this because of the reds, you know, and the contrast, and also the theme, you know, the prodigal son.
Yes. It's
There's
funny
actually
how
a prodigal son story in
whoa,
Jigs and Tales of Baudry.
Is that their title?
Yes, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the second term, tenebrism, from Italian tenebroso, meaning dark, is an extreme,
shadowy. Actually, it's
okay.
Yeah, but okay.
A highly dramatic form of chiaroscuro, where darkness becomes the dominant feature of the painting. So
I shouldn't correct the Italian definition, but if you go back to the Latin, it's talking about shadows and shades. So I assume
you might be right.
More
though,
like shadowy.
Okay.
Well, it's, that, you know, if it's shadowy, that's going to be dark as opposed to light. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So heavy darkness. Okay. Let's move on, just because this is clearly not the focus of today. All right. And this chronology might be off too, which, again, dress rehearsal. Hopefully I can iron that out later. I'm sure all the podcast listeners are happy to be listening to a rehearsal rather than the finished product. So a quote from Goya, I guess it's a famous quote, is him saying, "I've had three masters, nature, Velázquez, and Rembrandt." Velázquez being a countryman, and I guess we just saw the Rembrandt painting, and this is a self-portrait of Rembrandt on the left here. That's maybe got more of that brown that you were mentioning, but also a heavy darkness, right?
Well,
heavy
the contrast, yeah, it's light and dark. So yeah, you can see that influence on him. Velázquez also was an important influence for Picasso, as we've discussed before.
Okay. So this painting, I can't remember. I think it's in Scotland, believe it or not. I think it's in Glasgow. It might have temporarily been there, but have you seen this painting before today?
Okay, we're looking at Dali's Christ of St. John of the Cross. I don't know that I've seen this one, but I've seen another crucifixion painting of his, which is really interesting.
This one, I mean, you can see I just blew it up on the left.
Yeah.
It's it's such an interesting take on the crucifix, right? I mean, how would you even describe this aesthetically?
Well, it's like a bird's eye view, or an overview. The one I'm thinking of is even more like abstract.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find it, but it's basically the body of Christ, and then they're just all of these squares, I guess, over the stigmata, but they're like hovering above his body, there's no like penetration of nails. I don't know if I'm describing it well, but it's a very abstract.
I mean, there's no penetration of nails
depiction.
here as well, right? I don't see a nail
maybe
anywhere.
Maybe not.
So that's
that's why I'm reminded of it. But it's even more abstract, the one I'm thinking of.
I guess for me, it's interesting. I mean, he's obviously not the first to maybe emphasize, like, I mean, you could argue that there is a beauty to many images of the crucifix, whether you want to take that beauty from the suffering, you know, like the sacrifice aspect. But here, you're not seeing any really of the pain, right? Instead you're seeing quite like an aesthetically pleasing body. And then a sort of dreamlike atmosphere, somewhat of that surrealness that we know we associate with Dali. I guess I'm just saying, some people, I guess, might object, right? Some very traditional people might say that this is maybe like
blasphemous.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily sexualizing, but maybe just what would be a criticism in your opinion? Could this be criticized for being like beautifying it or something? Maybe, yeah.
Well, who knows? I mean, some pious person might say, "Where's the blood? Where's the suffering of my Jesus?"
And he's not hanging over like in the desert, right? He's kind of like over a body of water here, and yeah, I mean, he's turned down, so it's not necessarily like an optimistic painting, but there's a sort of like a mystical, almost otherworldly aspect, like kind of like spacey.
Yeah,
the blackness. Okay. And then we've got a self-portrait of Goya here. So
wow, you can really see the influence of Rembrandt in this self-portrait.
It's true. And it's interesting because as we move through these slides, we'll look at a lot of Goya's earlier work, which is much more traditional and precise, and it's clear to see like the quote-unquote mastery that at times can seem slightly lacking. Like if you didn't know that he had this, you might not recognize his skill just from the black paintings because how they were preserved or so on. But when you see this, you can clearly tell maybe that he can do it all, just like a Picasso maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a painting of Goya, and he's been given this label, last of the old masters, first of the moderns. And
I like that.
Yeah, so 1746 to 1828.
That's why Baudelaire admired him so much. I don't know, there's kind of a paean or ode to Goya in the Flowers of Evil.
Nice. Is this a poem specifically about Goya?
No, I think he's like in an art gallery, and he sees paintings by all these different masters, so there's like a stanza devoted to Goya, if I remember correctly.
I'd like to see that. Maybe I'll work it in.
I'll see if I can find it. Got it on my shelf somewhere.
I'm gonna write down Baudelaire. Nice. Okay, and so we're gonna do a fast forward version of Goya's life. 10 key life events accompanied by pictures. So highly recommended, people, if you're listening, to turn to your screens, maybe switch to your laptop, or even plug your laptop into your big screen TV with that HD. Oh, son, make it rain. All right, so I think this is another self-portrait here, by the way. Him looking rather like a dandy. I do like that word, dandy. All right, 1746, born in Fuente do Toros, a small village in Spain. Relatively humble beginnings. Marries Josefa Bayu, who belongs to an artistic family connected to the Spanish royal court, and apparently this is like his entry into the art world is like through her, that he's able to kind of access certain contexts. So he initially gains recognition painting colorful cartoon designs that are then transferred onto huge tapestries. And so here we've got an image called the Parasol. And you can interject at any point. Otherwise, I'll just kind of...
Very colorful.
Yep. And his career as a court painter rises rapidly. he enters royal and aristocratic circles. So he's painting Charles VI of Spain and his family. I need to relearn kind of, because I know he had different relationships with different royals, to who he liked to different degrees and who were more or less liberal or oppressive. So I have to revisit who was who. But I'm pretty sure Charles VI would have been a more positive influence than maybe. I know the guy who comes after Napoleon is particularly censorious and kind of brings back the Inquisition vibe. But yeah, as you can tell, I'm not as well versed as I should be. All right, 1792 is a mysterious illness, permanently destroys his hearing, changes his outlook on life and art. It actually gets much worse later on. So I've mentioned 1792 here, but this isn't maybe necessarily when it reaches its real detrimental power. But he painted this self-portrait later, kind of like as a tribute, I guess, to his doctor, Dr. Arieta. So I've just expanded it a little bit because you can see these heads in the background, which is interesting, kind of what they're doing there, and maybe a sort of prelude to the black paintings in a way, in terms of that eeriness. Okay.
I wonder if he had any influence from Bosch. Some of these figures in the background look like some of the ghoulish crowd scenes that you find in Bosch,
Yeah.
Not ghoulish, but more like grotesque, like in his earlier work, you can see him playing the game, doing what he needs to do to be the court favorite and get all those commissions. But as he gets sick and maybe falls out of favor, that's when it gets interesting for me, because he introduces this element of the grotesque.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the reason I'm even discussing him, right? Is the stuff that's going to come later. So I'll let you talk about this just because you've decided to use this anyway for your moniker today.
Yeah. So this is one of the caprices, right? These are, I want to say they're aquatint. They're basically illustrations, but this is one of the most famous. It's called El Sueño de la Razón produce monstruos. The sleep of reason produces monsters. And like Saturn eating his son, this is one of my favorite Goya images. I think I first saw it in an art history book as an undergrad, and I was like, wow, that is not only is it a fascinating image, but the fact that he titles it, and then the title is so prominent in the picture itself. It's like written on the desk or whatever that this figure is sleeping on or has his head down on, dreaming on, right? So I always like this motto or maxim always fascinated me. What does that mean? So if you don't like rein in the imagination with some kind of rationality, it will produce monstrosities, right? It'll result in chaos and disorder. On the other hand,
I just thought of really quick just before I forget. And this is not really related, but I'm just thinking like what the idle hands, the devil's playground. It's not directly connected, but a little bit, right? Like if you're doing anything that's kind of like, do you see any kind of parallel with that expression?
Maybe, but what I was about to say is that it could have the opposite meaning, right? Maybe the artist wants to produce monsters in his art, right? And if so, then it's necessary to tamp down the rationality and let the imagination run wild. You see what I'm saying? So it's, of course, as always, it's both and. It depends on your purpose, I guess. What are you trying to create?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And it kind of transitions into the point I wanted to make, which is like, I hadn't heard that interpretation. Like from what I've been reading, he definitely was super critical of like the church, which he associated with superstition, and just like the detrimental quality of superstition in general. We'll look at that later. But at the same time, there's something of an irony, I would say, in like the fact that what makes this image powerful and compelling are the monsters.
Yeah, right.
So it's like,
I think he would have been aware of that. I mean, you know.
sure, or the black paintings in particular. The reason that we're drawn to them is because of they're not conventional and they're bizarre. So it's like there's a romantic quality to the paintings that we love, despite the fact that he's like claiming to be preaching for the Enlightenment values and so on. So there's an interesting tension there.
Tension for sure.
I mean, I don't know what is the.
Well, we can only speculate, but I would assume he was quite aware and conscious of that tension, and he's playing with that, right? Like he wants this title, this maxim. It's almost like a proverb, right? It's almost Blakean, you know.
I was literally about to talk about Blake, but I'll let you talk about Blake first.
Well, one law for the lion and ox is oppression. What the hell does that mean? You know, it's like it's just something that occurred to him in a vision, and it's open to multiple interpretations.
Well, I was gonna say like Blake is like top of the romantic movement, and he's got. Do you remember the painting where there's this dude like measuring, kind of like with a compass type thing?
Yeah,
and that's supposed to be a very negative figure,
right?
So this idea. Do you remember who that is? Just so I could.
Well, he calls reason the ratio
Urizen, right?
Well, yes,
Urizen.
he's one of the. I guess he's one of the
it's a
four
very negative
Zoas.
Character,
right? Your reason is literally your reason,
but
but he also talks about the ratio, or you know, ratio. That's the Latin word for rationality, reason, mind, and all that. So. Yeah, he certainly Blake. If we're talking about Blake, he's certainly aware of the limitations of rationality. But I think Goya would have been as well. Maybe he's reacting against like the complete absence of rationality, and he's trying to say, "Hey, let's rein it in." But as you say, he certainly. Well, I don't know if we can say certainly, but we would think that he would be aware of the fact that producing the monsters is one of the, you know,
the attractions,
one of the desiderata. We want to see those monstrosities. Yeah. We want the imagination to run wild.
Well, and I mean, he's an artist, right? So that's the profession of inspiration and so on. I mean, I was also thinking I would have to study this, but like Enlightenment, I mean, is this, what is it, if reason is an Enlightenment value, like, is he in a period of like Enlightenment art?
He's probably just expressing.
I mean, Enlightenment's obviously earlier if we're talking Italy. It's just people.
Yeah,
know,
but he's probably expressing an anti-clericalism, right? Like he's just reacting against the insanity and fanaticism of the Spanish church, as you know, many Spanish authors maybe have done. I'm thinking of
Cervantes.
Yeah, okay, not as violently. I'm thinking of like more recently, like I think his name is Goitisolo, who is just like, you know, he was banned for his obscene novels, and he's very outspoken about his anti-clerical positions. Yeah, he's the bad boy of modern Spanish, you know, or 20th century
Carlos's
Spanish
take
literature.
On that too. Yeah, I'm sure he'll have some things to say about it.
Yeah, but that I just take it as, you know, there's that in this same series, the Caprices. There's like this image of two priests, and then the caption or the title is something like "It's hot." Like he's basically satirizing their gluttony. It's like these fucking priests are so gluttonous and greedy they can't even wait for the soup to cool off. They're just like, ah. And so we're
gonna get an image similar to that in the 14. Right. I don't know. I'm assuming that's not what you're referencing.
No, it's one of the Caprices.
The Caprichos.
It's one of those.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those aqua tints or illustrations.
Well, anyway, just coming back really fast.
This would make a fantastic greeting card, right? Like, happy birthday, the sleep of reason
Right.
produces monsters. By Hallmark.
Okay, but what's the period? Like, John Locke belongs to what period?
John Locke?
Yeah, that's Enlightenment, right?
Well, he's more like a British rationalist, I guess.
But I'm saying, like, these guys who, supposedly inspired the American forefathers and so on.
Right. Okay. Yeah, he would predate Goya, I guess.
But they call
not
them
not by much though, right?
But if Enlightenment refers to, yeah. So it makes sense. I'm being stupid for a second. Okay, so this is Enlightenment. I mean, I'm just wondering. Okay, I know what I wanted to say. Like, is there a type of art that is associated with, like, if we're talking about painting, like, with Enlightenment? Like, what would reason as art look like? Would it be like more rational, or do you know anything about that, or is that something I should look into?
Maybe you should research. Do your own research, man.
Okay, I'll try, man. No comments. I'm not a full-time academic, people. I'm a teacher. I gotta focus on the kids. All right, so next up, Napoleon invades Spain, which exposes Goya to brutality, executions, and famine. I can throw a couple interesting things at you, and then you can jump in. So apparently there was something tantalizing at first with regards to Napoleon, because he was supposed to be like conveying some more enlightened French values, and then as with many things, he ended up just becoming brutal and not really practicing any of that. So we see like a certain level of disillusionment with Goya and Napoleon.
Yeah.
And this painting apparently is one of the most famous anti-war paintings ever, and we'll see that it influenced. If you don't know this painting, you'll definitely know its influences. And it's called The 3rd of May, and we see a group of French troops firing on presumably a Spanish revolutionary rebel fighter. And this art historian called it the first great picture which can be called revolutionary in every sense of the word, in style, in subject, and in intention.
It's a great one, and we've talked about it before when we discussed Picasso.
Oh, really? Did we feature it?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it along with the next one.
Okay. So, well, the next one, obviously, but I just, this particular... Okay,
No, the next Goya painting.
Okay. So this painting apparently, explicitly had a influence on Picasso's Guernica, and also Picasso's Massacre in Korea.
Yeah, more so, like, in terms of
the layout. Yeah,
layout and the mise ensemble.
Yeah. And this was very interesting. Did you know about this?
No.
Did you read this? So everybody knows this peace sign, which is like if you're not watching, the circle with the kind of triangle at the bottom and
the Mercedes logo with an extra line.
Yes, the Mercedes logo with an extra line. Interestingly, the artist Gerald Holtham drew direct inspiration from that painting, and it's actually I didn't know that this is actually meant to be a person with their arms out.
I didn't either.
That's very interesting. And even though in the Goya painting the arms are more up, but it's still supposed to be this kind of like sacrificial image, or oppressive, image of oppression. Very interesting. I will never look at that image the same. And I guess it's more specifically about nuclear disarmament. That was explicitly what this particular peace sign was attached to.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting.
So we're now at the stage in his life where he's tired of being a lackey of the court and completely fed up with society, lost faith, and on a personal level, he's lost his hearing, which has affected him emotionally, and so he withdraws from public life to a farmhouse outside Madrid known as La Quinta del Sordo, which translates to the House of the Deaf Man, and that is where he paints these 14 iconic paintings, Las Pinturas Negras, directly onto his walls. And even though we are a good 40 minutes in, I guess, right? We're now finally going to get into the crux of today's podcast. So, just I guess the last thing about his life is that after the farmhouse, he does end up moving to France, where he dies in Bordeaux, I believe, in 1828. And we've got a painting here, The Milkmaid of Bordeaux, which is supposed to be his final portrait. So, do you want to maybe introduce these? Or at least say something here, and then I'll get into the paintings.
Well, this first slide features one of the 14 black paintings that we already referenced. It's Saturn eating his son.
We'll get into it later, that particular painting, but
Yeah.
do you want to just like say one more like thing about, I don't know.
Well, we already mentioned how they're basically murals, right? He painted them directly onto the walls of this country house he was living in, maybe with his servant / lover.
Yeah.
I think we'll get to her later, but
/ illegitimate kid, possibly.
What? Excuse me? Wait, what?
Her daughter is supposed to like potentially be his child.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying the servant and lover was his illegitimate daughter. Like, what? No.
# Woody, baby. Let's edit that out.
Okay. Yeah, so he's lost his hearing. Maybe he's losing his mind. He's painting his nightmares directly onto the wall of his living space. I mean, it's a pretty interesting documentation of an artist whose mental and physical health is decaying before our eyes, you know?
Yeah, and he didn't seem to mind being very intimately acquainted with these paintings. I mean, I didn't put that well, but like the particular painting that you mentioned as, you know, the Saturn image apparently is right in his kitchen. So it's something that he'd be, you know, eating next to every day. So it's not like he's hiding away these more gruesome images. He's like absolutely friends with them.
But at the same time, he doesn't even bother to name them or title them, you know? They're almost like
bother. I don't know about bother. I mean, what is... How important is the title? I mean, a title sometimes is like, is that crucial for an artist? Or is that like...
No, but what I'm saying is it's possible that he's just doodling or sketching, you know?
I think that's a really good point. Because some of these paintings, yeah, you don't see the same level of, as we talked about earlier, like maybe completeness or precision, and you wonder, is that because he's not that bothered, or is this like the exact effect that he wants with this particular piece?
And does it matter, you know? I mean, this is just the style that he adopted at this stage of his, we can't even say career, but his avocation, you know? This is just what resulted in his, or this is the result of his long life, and you know, this is how his craft developed at the end.
Yeah, and there's something maybe about doing it for pleasure, because the fact that we know that it's not aimed at commercial,
right?
So
he has no one to please but himself. Yeah, and you know, maybe he's not even trying to do that. He's just letting his nightmarish imagination run wild for his own amusement, or maybe he's doing it with bitterness. Maybe it's like, well, you know, fuck you, I'm gonna paint the most outrageous, offensive thing I can imagine on the walls, and everyone who lives here or comes to visit has to see it, whether they want to or not.
Yeah.
Including me.
I assume it's some type of museum now. I mean, the paintings obviously aren't there. They could do some kind of like cheap replicas and put them there and give you some kind of like, you know, corny tourist experience. But yeah, I wonder how it functions now. All right, so this is supposed to be like a potential arrangement. I don't want to say an authoritative one, although they may actually, I assume they do know because people were there photographing.
Yeah, they took photos.
So maybe we can say that this is how they were laid out, but the image itself is not like that clear, and we're like missing rooms and furniture and so on. So, but it gives you some concept.
So
Yeah, this is a 3D image of 2 floors.
It's 2 floors, yeah.
Yeah, so 14 images spread across these 2 floors.
And there may be a 15th.
Yes.
Which is fascinating because there are 14 stations of the cross,
Interesting.
but the 15th is Jesus is resurrected. So
Ascending, yeah.
Yeah, so there's like an ambiguity. Are there 14 or 15? And so are there 14 or 15 black paintings? I wonder if, that was intentional or just a fascinating coincidence.
Coming to your question of restoration, I was a bit confused because, like, for example, the image that you're looking at right now, apparently it's like, again, I could be wrong, and I know it's not coming off that smoothly, but fuck it. This is like a photograph, maybe, of like what it actually looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that has like a complete absence of color.
Yeah, it's a black and white photo. It's not, that's before color photography, I think.
Okay, so that would be why there's no color?
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's almost concerning. I mean, I wonder how much touching up they've done to the paintings that we see now is my point. Because, like, I just want to say really quickly, I've seen they've even added whole figures into some of these paintings. Like, they added a whole head, so, I mean, you're really seeing like a different version. I don't know. You tell me what the paintings looked like in real life.
Well, as I said, they were not as vibrant as I expected. So I came away feeling like, okay, it's probably, pretty legit, pretty authentic. They probably didn't do too much touching up.
But I've seen in some of the documentaries I've watched that, as I said, they've inserted whole figures and that the original stuff was like really rough. So I don't know.
But in terms of the color, I don't think they took too many liberties, but who knows?
I don't know how interesting this slide is. I'm going to skip it. Okay, so this is the room. Is it how you remember it? This is in the Prado. I wonder if this is one of many displays.
Yeah, that does look familiar. Where is Saturn?
It may, we don't see all of them. I mean, I think
that
counted.
big one. I think that big one on the right is the Witch's Sabbath, and
there's 11 paintings pictured here.
As I say, that was like the biggest one.
Oh, I do see the Saturn. Maybe if you're looking straight ahead, it's like it could be 3 to the left.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah. It's bigger than I remember it. So,
but I think the one to the closest to us on the right. Yeah, that's the one that impressed you, right?
Witch's Sabbath, yeah.
Which I think is a fantastic image.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah,
and what's also interesting, we'll talk about it in a second, but the picture that they've got dead center is like very famous and like many people's favorite, and it hasn't made that impression on me yet, but we'll get into that. Okay. So let's save that. That's the doggy. And here it is. It's the first one we're looking at it. I forgot. Okay. So this one, for example, the documentary that I was just watching, this guy said this is his most affecting. It's called The Drowning Dog. Again, we're going to take all these titles with a grain of salt because they were done posthumously, or at least not with Goya's maybe pronouncement. And one art critic called it the world's most beautiful picture. One description, again, we're not going to say this description is like what it really is, but it says it's a dog drowning in quicksand. Its gray head pokes defiantly out of the brown sludge. And again, this is 100% just interpretation. Even as a dead yellow sky above insists there is no hope, no savior. So the full image is on your right, and I've just blown up the part with the dog on the left. But if you want to get the full perspective, you should look at the picture on the right. Do you remember this painting?
No, I don't. But looking at it now, I have to say it is pretty amazing. That poor little doggy who seems resigned to his fate, right? It's like, okay, fuck it. I'm going down.
I guess so.
If that's what this actually is, a dog sinking in quicksand. Maybe it's just a dog walking over the horizon, Like,
Well, that's what I'm saying. This like image of complete existential despair. I'm not sure if I would see that without the context or without. But yeah, because there's some. Oh, and I also wanted to say before we get into all these that one article I read, this person was interviewing like the present day curator at the Prado, and who was saying that she takes the tone of humor very like she senses humor a lot in his paintings.
yeah.
So she doesn't feel that heaviness that a lot of us associate with
Well,
it.
it's black humor, black comedy,
Yeah.
but I get it. Like you could see this as a comical image, especially because, as I say, the dog. If I had to articulate his thoughts, it'd be like, ah, fuck, here we go again, or it's like I knew this day would come.
Yeah, I mean,
He's not
Yeah.
struggling, if he is
Right.
indeed. I don't know how you determine that this is quicksand. Like, how is a dog gonna end up in
Yeah,
quicksand?
sure.
But okay, if that's what it is, like, he's not struggling. He's not like yelping and barking maniacally. He's just like, okay, I guess this is the part where I drown in quicksand.
Okay, so let's go on, I guess.
The colors are amazing, the reds and browns.
Okay, so here's the Inquisition. So again, let's maybe not focus too much on the title because maybe it's more interesting to realize that this is supposed to be a pilgrimage to draw miraculous water from the well of San Isidro. And I do think I should. No, I guess I'm not going to contrast this one yet. That's going to come a little bit later, I guess. I shouldn't be going through these images either. Don't look if you're watching on the video, people. All right, there's another image which basically you get to see Goya early and then Goya later, and you see how different he's looking at the same kind of religious image, more positively earlier in his life and then more twisted later on. But yeah, I guess any thoughts on this image? I mean, I've heard some stuff about it, but
Well, again, I'm reminded of Bosch. You've got these. It's almost like the ship of fools trope, right? Like the grotesque element is very pronounced, and like all the people look like monsters. They look monstrous. They look menacing and disgusting and horrifying.
do you want to say anything like for someone who maybe isn't as familiar with the idea? It's not me, of course. I'm super smart about everything. About the grotesque and how you understand it.
Well, we
Because
talked about
I'll tell
this
you in a
also.
second, but yeah.
Well, we talked about this also in that Picasso episode, right? Like the Dora Maar portraits, the weeping woman. She doesn't look human, right? She's a suffering machine, as I think someone, maybe Picasso himself, said. Women are suffering machines of suffering, something like that. And he painted her in she's grotesque, she doesn't look fully human. She looks monstrous. They're exaggerated features to highlight that feeling of, I don't know what, alienation, maybe. Like it also introduces a comic satirical element, but it's disturbing at the same time,
Yeah, I mean, one thing I heard today is like the Saturn image, which we'll focus on it more in a second, but that would not have been as shocking at the time as it is to us because of how literate or used to grotesque images that the Spanish public was at that time, which is interesting. So, the grotesque, I don't know, even thinking of something like gargoyles, right? Like,
yeah, right.
that was they're just around. So, I don't know what to say about that, but I mean, that's why I think it's important for us to really understand its role in the culture, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
How ubiquitous it was, and yeah. Okay.
Well, do you relate this at all to Don Quixote and Cervantes? Like, is there an element of the grotesque in that great novel that we discussed?
I don't know.
Not to the same degree, maybe, but
the word that's coming to mind is ribald.
Yeah.
But I would say it's more on the absurd, or it doesn't have that darkness. I don't read that darkness in like Pancho or
Right. Yeah, it's lighter. It's less grotesque, but I'm just
it's more
wondering,
Camelot, you know?
but is there an element of it that maybe Goya
It'd be
and his
interesting to explore for
contemporaries
sure.
accentuated or took to the nth degree? All right, so here's Witch's Sabbath. This is the
I'll
one
let
that
you jump on this one a little bit.
well, this as I say, this is the one that most impressed me. I had seen it before, in books and so on, but it's really maybe because it's the biggest, and I think it was one of the better preserved, if I remember correctly. But it's just it's like, what is this? It's some
Yeah.
kind of like, Epstein Island ritual, It's
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, this ram figure, yeah, as the leader,
the
and
goat,
apparently like
Baphomet
the goat
or something,
and this idea of witches. We're coming back to the reason, the sleeping of the reason. This is what happens when reason sleeps: is you get these types of characters taking charge, and apparently they are initiating this woman who's seated on the right. And I guess in the restoration process, they like reduced a significant part of the art piece. My main point being the person sitting on the right, that she's supposed to be in the center of the painting originally. So
when they hacked it off the wall, they kind of changed the proportions and perspective. I mean, that's fine. You got the crowd. The focus is that goat, which I see here, his friend and caretaker.
Well, it is now, but what if you seeing the girl in the center? Then the focus might be more about them bringing in this innocent person or outsider.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that his friend and caretaker called this work the Big Billy Goat, as if he were the focus?
Yeah, sure.
And it, that's certainly, even looking at it now on the screen and thinking back to when I saw it at the Prado, that he was definitely, even though he's in the left hand portion, like he's left of center in terms of the composition of the painting. I mean, he's still
everybody's looking at him. Everybody's looking at him. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a Last Supper thing. He's definitely in the center of that Last Supper.
Yeah, very blasphemous, satanic, anti-Catholic, like it's a black mass, basically, Black Sabbath.
Yeah, but again, if that guy is supposed to be kind of I wonder if that guy's supposed to be a stand-in for a cleric, then it's not necessarily like Satanism. It's more like this is what the priest actually is.
Yeah. Well, that's what a black mass is, right? It's an inversion of the mainstream Catholic mass.
So you don't see any aspect of like glamour to this party, do you?
I mean, it's
not really, because you could portray stuff like, I don't know, who are the Greek gods that are associated with like decadence and
Dionysus, maybe, or
is there anyone worse?
What do you mean worse?
Well, because isn't Dionysus like pretty positive in some way?
I don't know. Ask Pentheus if he thinks so. Probably not.
I mean, is there anyone who has a more macabre flavor?
Maybe Pan is like like
the
god of
Pan in Russia, by the way.
Literally the god of panic. So, but he's also sometimes related to Dionysus. So,
well, I guess I'm just saying.
But Dionysus is also a forerunner of Christ. So, there's that too.
I don't know what that means.
Well, like
I understand
the
Dionysian,
the Dionysian rituals, the Bacchae, for instance, they would partake of their god's flesh and blood. They had a kind of primitive Christian communion, and they believed that they were entheos, like the god entered them when they did the ritual. They were enthusiastic entheos, right? So they became one with their god when they ate the flesh of a sacrificed animal or person. In some cases, drank the blood, ate the flesh. There's a vampiric aspect to Dionysus, which I think was transferred to Jesus Cristo.
Okay. We just got demonetized. I'm just playing. Um,
Oh
Yeah,
shit!
I guess my
How am I
only
going to
little
pay
point-
the rent this month?
my point, I guess, is like you might have a somewhat similar image in like a Greek pantheon that would be more hedonistic, right? You'd have the darkness, but with the fun, whereas this doesn't really seem to have the fun. That's all I'm trying to say, I guess. Okay. Do you want to take this one as well, or at least kick it off?
Okay, well, this is a strange one. It's a couple of figures apparently flying. I think this one may have been tampered with as well, or restored or something. I don't know much about it, so
Okay. Well, I just thought you're maybe more of the reference scholar / biblical stuff. I don't know. So it's called Asmodea. It's a reference to the demon Asmodeus from the Old Testament book of Tobias, who is also mentioned in a 17th century novel by Vélez de Guevara as a devil who shows the insides of houses. So I'll just give the other context that I've read. The flying pair direct our gaze toward the fortress here in the background. Two soldiers wearing French uniforms aim their weapons at the background.
in the lower right corner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
They look kind of like that firing squad in the 3rd of May.
Exactly. I don't know if we want to sit with this painting or just go on.
I just go on. I don't have much to say about it. I mean, it's that also
we could sit with it. Is my point though? Like we could sit.
Well, it is a grotesque, almost proto surrealistic image, right? Like what?
Yeah.
What are they doing flying?
Exactly. So you've got like almost like Dali-esque as well, and you talk about the first of the moderns.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it's your boy. Help us out, classicist. Give us the background to help someone who is rusty on mythology.
Well, Saturn is the Roman name of Cronus, who, is one of the previous generations of gods before the Olympians. And he, fearing that the next generation would usurp his power, he proceeded to eat his progeny.
All but one, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Hesiod, who called him crooked schemer Cronus, right? Because Hesiod in the Theogony, the birth of the gods, right? He's celebrating Zeus and the Olympians, and it's Zeus who castrates the father figure,
literally,
and takes power. Yeah. So what does Zeus do? He somehow tricks Cronus. Maybe he's like ingested, but then he gets vomited up, and then he eventually castrates his father and takes over. I may be misremembering certain things, but he's in terms of the Greeks that we're most familiar with, he's the new power generation, right? He's the Olympian generation, and the previous generation was that of Cronus or Saturn. But interestingly, that was supposed to be the golden age of history. Like things were supposed to have been best during the Saturnian time, or the age of Cronus. So it's
the best for the gods or for humans.
It's just
humans weren't around yet, right?
It was just like the golden age of
existence.
The earth, of existence. Yeah. So if that's the case, why why is he considered crooked schemer Cronus by Hesiod?
Well, he did eat his kids, though.
Yeah. So but that's what I'm saying. If he's so barbaric and
right,
such a monster, how come that was the golden age, right?
Well, is this like the end of the golden age? Like, maybe, no? I mean, that's like, maybe they'd enjoy it. It's like end of the empire kind of thing.
Well, I don't know. Even if you read Ovid, who's much later, or a few centuries after Hesiod, he's still thinking back to the Saturnian age as a golden age. It's just
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just tradition.
So, a couple points I've heard is this is supposed to be a critique of savage power, the desperation that power takes on when threatened. One critic made a big deal out of the eyes actually being full of fear, not so much, rage or power, but fear, the threat to his power. A more humorous reading said he looks as if he's chomping on churros at a Spanish bar with blood instead of chocolate sauce. I liked that image. Do you want to recall anything else that appealed to you when you first saw it? Sure.
Well, let me just give you some more background on
Please.
Cronus, or let Wikipedia give you some background.
That's better than GPT.
Cronus, as I said, well, I didn't mention this part. He's the generation called the Titans, right?
Yes.
Before the Olympians, but
Right.
he was the leader and youngest of the Titans. And let's see, the children of Gaia, Earth, and Uranus, Sky, right? So the Titans are the children of basically heaven and earth. He overthrew his father and ruled during the mythological Golden Age, as I said, until he was overthrown by his son Zeus.
Wait, so who did Saturn overthrow? What was
his father?
Uranus.
Would have been, Uranus, not my anus, Uranus. Would have been,
Uranus.
Would have been Sky, yes. Uranos is his Greek.
And that was, so this Uranus still was like embodied in like three-dimensional physical form? So
I mean, when you go back to, it depends on which source you consult, but like in Hesiod, they're kind of primeval natural forces, right? Like there's something called chaos or chaos, which is the yawning gap, as my Greek teacher explained it to me.
It's just like the Big Bang type shit.
Yeah, it's just an abyss, basically, right? And then somehow Sky and Earth are formed out of that, and then Sky and Earth fuck.
Make love.
And then, right. And then...
note our choice of words, listeners.
Yeah, they have Congress. And, then there's one generation, and that's thought of, as I said, the Golden Age, which is interesting when you look at this image. Why would this be the Golden Age?
But again, why aren't you convinced with my saying that this is the end of the Golden Age? Maybe, this is like...
Yeah, like...
that makes sense.
So he's like grasping for power, and so, yeah.
And he's trying to hold on, like Trump right now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's you could certainly interpret it
Joe
that
Walsh,
way.
Bam. Tulsi Gabbard, bam. You done, son. You done. Let me feast. I don't know. I don't really want to get that.
And he looks, I like Cronus, Saturn. He looks like a caveman. He looks, like a Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal type, right? Like he doesn't look fully human. He looks barbaric and primitive and inhuman.
Yeah,
like this is beyond grotesque. I would say this is, I don't know, it's not quite surrealist. There's something more powerful and affecting than a surrealist image, because it's I would call it grotesque, but it's so unique. It's not like those Ship of Fools, Bosch like figures. This is just a unique image with the eyes and the brutality and the barbarousness.
This is like, because the head seems like it's already gone, and what is he even biting? Is he biting on like
an arm?
It's like biting on the hand part of an arm, yeah, or he's about to insert the whole arm, basically, yeah. Maybe.
I mean, it looks like he's already torn off the hand, and he's working his way up the elbow.
Well, because you were saying how like Zeus was vomited up, but like
I'm not sure about
whole?
That.
Okay.
Well, look, Zeus, as this said, Zeus is the youngest. I think that's how he was able to escape this fate, right? Like he saw what was being done to his elder siblings, and then
I vaguely remember this from elementary school,
right? And so that's how he was able to come up with the trick. I don't know if he was vomited up or he gave him a rock to eat instead.
That sounds right.
Hesiod talks about he calls Cronus a brute. He's like the stupid brute, fell for the trick. He ate the rock or whatever it was.
And sorry, who's Hesiod?
Hesiod. He's
a historian.
No, he's a poet.
Mythology. Okay.
He's a source. He's a mythological source. He wrote the Theogony, which is, and also Works and Days, but never mind that. His mythological work is the Theogony, the birth of the gods, right? And so,
is he inventing these, or is he just writing down what is already the culture?
Did Homer invent all the myths in the Iliad and Odyssey? No.
Okay.
So he's working with tradition and fashioning those tales into an epic poem, which is also a didactic
so
poem.
This is a real tangent, but are the myths meant to be, they just sort of were put together bit by bit by the culture, or were there supposed to be some sources?
Where do our myths come from,
different myths, some things are probably more spread out in terms of the source, and some are more isolated in smaller groups of people.
You're not gonna find a specific source for. Our sources now for these myths are the literature, right? And also
yeah, but I'm saying, where did the myths come from?
The archaeological record, like vase paintings and sculptures and so on. Where do they come from? If you're talking specifically Greek, a lot of them came from the ancient Near East, right? Like the heaven and earth polarity probably has or dichotomy probably has an ancient Near Eastern origin tracing back to Mesopotamia.
Yeah, but a lot of these Greek gods, they're a lot more concrete and very specific with the images and the stories. They're not really what I'm saying? They're very crafted. The sky existed. That's so kind of vague.
Yeah,
anyway.
Okay. Well, there are parallels if we're talking Greek mythology, there are a lot of parallels with Hindu mythology, right? You've got these gods that appear in the Vedic age in India that resemble in some ways the Greek gods, and then you've got Norse equivalents, right?
But what are you trying to say? That we could that for each myth you just keep going back and you
there are all kinds of theories. If we're talking about those three matrices, Greek, Nordic, and Hindu or Vedic, right? They're all traced back to an Indo-European source, but they're variations because they're influences from native or indigenous cultures. If we're talking about India especially, you've got the Indo-European Vedic gods, but then they met the Dravidian gods of the south, Shiva, for example. He resembles Dionysus in the Greek tradition in a way, but most people think he had a southern Dravidian origin. He's just...
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, but still... Okay. No, I'm saying, but still, are you saying there wasn't a council at some point that was yo, we're going to write up some stories? You're saying it's just, it goes so far back that there's just no way of us understanding the origins?
We don't even know who Homer was. As my Greek teacher joked, she said, it's not like there was a Mr. Homer. There's a tradition that there was a blind poet from the island of Chios who was this amazing bard who, recited these epic poems, but most people now believe that it's a tradition, and for centuries it was passed on by various bards or rhapsodes as they were called, and then at some point someone wrote them down.
Okay, but let's talk about like Hercules and his like 10 labors, right? It's a very kind of specific, concrete story.
Okay,
So where would that have come from? Would that also have been like Vedic?
I mean, I can't answer that. I don't know.
What's your guess, though?
Well, what is my guess? I just told you like the best theory for, in my opinion, for explaining the connections among those three Indo-European traditions, right? Like a lot of them probably go back to similar sources, but they're also drawing from whatever other cultures they came into contact with. If we're talking about India, there's the influence of those southern Dravidian cultures. And then if we're talking about the more Western Indo-European peoples, like in Greece, they're going to be drawing influence from...
Influence, yes, but I'm saying, like, do you think at one point one dude is like sitting and being like, yo, here's my story, I'm going to come up with it, and he's like, just like, where's the authorship? Is there the deliberate authorship, the deliberate creation?
This is what I'm saying. The whole idea that there was a Mr. Homer who sat down and wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey is, unlikely, I would say. It's kind of absurd to imagine that, because we know there was an oral tradition that preceded writing for, centuries. And I think that's true of all of these traditions we're talking about. Writing came late.
Okay, so like, let's just stick with Hercules, for example.
Okay, I'm not an expert on him.
Okay, but we're just guessing. So there's the story of the 10, is it 10 labors?
That sounds right.
And what? Our first written account of that comes from ancient Greece? We're gonna guess. We're happy to be wrong about a lot of stuff.
Well, of course, Heracles, as he would have been called by the Greeks. Hercules is his Roman name. So there are various sources. You can read about Heracles in, for example, Euripides, and he's mentioned what other Greek source would he be mentioned in? I know, Apollonius of Rhodes, I guess, would have had some version of his story.
Okay. I mean,
it depends on, like, they don't all tell the same story. Some people have different variations, but the outlines are, pretty standard. We know Hercules, if we're talking about him, Heracles, he's a big, strong guy who did labors, 10 or whatever, right? So he's a macho man, he's fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I guess I'm just saying it's impossible that it's just, I mean, at some point the oral, if we're saying it's all oral history, and it's like, but at some point it wasn't oral history, right? At some point it's a dude thinking up the story.
Down.
Yeah,
someone wrote it down, but
somebody wrote it down, but who invented it though is what I'm saying.
How can I answer that?
I know, but who can guess though? Like, would it? I mean, because it's not like Greek civilization is endless. I mean, it's not that long ago that it like kicked off compared to like human history.
Well, okay,
right? It's very finite in that sense,
but it's still,
So we could probably pinpoint a certain time period where like these myths were born, right? Whether it's 5,000 years ago or whatever, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago.
Okay, again, we've got Homer and Hesiod as written sources, and they are some of our earliest authorities or written versions of these myths. But we know that they are drawing on a tradition which is centuries old. Like, it precedes the invention of writing. And even the invention of writing is like shrouded in myth, okay? The idea is that this Phoenician named Cadmus taught the Greeks how to write. Like, that's not history, that's myth. But it does that story, that myth or legend does parallel the archaeological or anthropological evidence, which indicates that indeed the Greek alphabet was an adaptation of the Phoenician alphabet, as was the Hebrew alphabet and the Etruscan alphabet, and so, ultimately the Roman and English alphabet.
Yeah. So we're saying storytelling is very old. We get
yeah,
that.
we're
so
really. We're really getting far afield here. We're supposed to be discussing the black paintings, but I just why is it hard for you to accept the fact that these myths are shrouded in mystery? Isn't that just a given?
Yes, but I'm saying we can still say some things for sure. Like we can say human civilization started around this time. My point is, it's not that mystical to the fact that we can't speculate.
All right, look, this is centuries BC, right? It's not even agreed by all scholars and so-called authorities that Jesus Christ was an actual historical figure.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's much more recent than this stuff we're talking about. So if even that is questionable, and not only him, but all of these, people from the Bible, Paul and, all of the others, right? That's much more recent, and there's so many question marks there. So the further back we go, the less sure we are of anything.
My point is not who did it. My point is my question is how a story comes to being. That's my only question, right? What do you think? Let me give you a couple. One theory would be a story you get a first part of the story, and then the next dude adds it's like telephone, right? Another one would be no, there was one person a long time ago who was just a really inspired artist, and he managed to get a good chunk of this stuff. He was such a powerful, charismatic person that he got a chunk of it started. Or maybe there was a council that were yo, we need a story, a creation story for our civilization. I just wonder about the actual, you know what I'm saying? The actual birth of the story.
I think there, it's a combination of factors, but pinpointing it as it seems you're trying to do is
I'm trying to guess how does this, I'm trying to guess.
So your guess is as good as mine. There are all those different theories, right?
But I bet there are, some theories are better than others.
Some mythologists say, it always has a natural origin, they wanted to explain the creation of the world, so they came up with a story saying that,
they?
Yeah, that's always the question, isn't it? Poets, bards,
and that's interesting.
Artists, shamans,
right? And that's interesting whether it was a communal creation or a rather individual creation. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, eventually,
you could say that an artist is already a communal creation.
Eventually, people, some individual is going to tell a story to other individuals, right? It's coming through someone's mouth,
you could say
or whatever.
They're a product of the society, so
also, if you look at the etymologies of some of these, again, all kinds of theories. I've got a book here called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. This guy argues that all of the gods are really just referring to, the mushroom as the ultimate sexual image. That's his theory, right? Not everyone accepts that. But if you look at it, and he does his theory is based on his etymological reconstructions, but there's certain things we know, right? Zeus. We know that Greek word is related to Latin deus, meaning literally God. So Zeus is God. And then some people say Dionysos. Dio, that is a form of Zeus. It's
right.
So that also means God or son of God or something like that. So they started out as abstractions, a lot of these gods, and then they, became more anthropomorphic and
I've
humanized.
Heard the Jesus story has taken place, the Jesus and 12 disciples. We found that in different societies and previously and so on.
Yeah, and we just talked about the connection with Dionysus and all of that. So at some point, how did if we're going to say that Jesus is a natural development of Dionysus, and then we could say Dionysus is a development of Zeus, right? And Zeus is a development of Cronus. How did they split off and become separate mythological characters?
That is not that difficult to understand for me. Like, I understand how. I mean, I'm not trying to sound smart. I'm saying like it's understandable for my brain how things adapt and get transposed and evolved. That's like very. That's what I was trying to like say. Like, but beyond that, there's still like a genesis time where you do need some deliberate crafting, like the basic construction of a story, even just plot elements. Like, okay, where are we going to put the crescendo? The climax. Where's the ascending action? Like, there still needs to be. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fine to adapt and transpose, but that's different than the actual like. Hey, we're gonna have this guy pushing a rock up this mountain. How are we gonna pick this image? Who came up with that image? And that seems like at that point you do need individual autonomy to come up with a concrete image, and that's like interesting for who was the creator of the actual image.
Okay, I really don't want to get deeper into this, but I did just have a thought. Let's say you have let's say world building has taken place and a fictional universe has been created. Like, okay, just take the fictional universe of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and so on, right? So Vince Gilligan is the showrunner who is generally thought to have come up with these characters and this world. He built that world, right? But he also worked with, and I'm sure he bounced ideas off of a writing staff that he had. And then, he wrote the most important episodes and the first episodes, but then he kind of turned it loose to his staff, and different people would be assigned to write different episodes, right? Once the characters are already developed, then you can take them wherever and have them do different things, right? So you've got these. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about archetypes here, Jungian archetypes, right? They're universal energies or characters that can be personified and anthropomorphized. And then you can do whatever you want with them, right? We know the basic, we were talking about Hercules before. We know the basic outline, right? So you got a big, strong dude that goes on all these adventures. But then, okay, with that basic character, what are you going to have him do,
Yeah, but the archetype itself is kind of boring compared to the way that it takes shape. So I'm saying the way that it takes shape is the part that's like brilliant, right?
Okay, well, that's why Homer and Hesiod have been preserved. Their writings were thought valuable enough to preserve. They didn't perish,
Right, but you're saying that they may have just been like transcribing the myths that someone else had
I'm not saying that.
of.
No, I'm not saying that. Well, they didn't invent the myths, but they shaped them. They put them into beautiful verse.
Right, I mean, but the idea, like let's say that what's the Troy thing, right, or whatever. The dudes come out of the ship, or what's
Trojan horse?
Yeah, the Trojan horse. Like that's the cool thing. Is my point. So that is where the credit goes.
All right, if you say so. I think it's all about the way. No, I don't think so. I think it's all about. I think it's all about the way it is shaped by the artist. You can have history, like you can just read the history of England, right? But yes, I would rather see what Shakespeare does with that.
Of course, but I'm just saying I'm talking about if the Trojan horse is not history, but it's like someone's invention, like, hey, this is a cool way to like make this story activate, or the Achilles heel, right? Like that's that plot element is the thing that's really interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get back to Goya.
And I should go if I'm going to go out to this movie. So should we go really fast now and just kind of wrap it up?
Please.
All right. This is the quote that I had before. Not evil, but a kind of shock at his own monstrousness. Interesting quote, no?
Yes.
And I thought about these eyes when I saw these eyes. So this is have you seen this painting before?
No, but it's amazing. Have
you heard about it?
No, not until I saw your slides.
it's been like, this is not the full image, by the way. This is just like me highlighting the central part of the
Yeah.
image. But this was damaged about 15 years ago, maybe. Like an ultra patriot was upset that Ivan the Terrible was being portrayed in this like disgraceful way and like attacked the painting
Oh my.
and like cut it, and now it's like been restored. But you can see it in Moscow at the Tretyakov Gallery. Great image. We talked about gluttony earlier. This is two old men eating. And I really think that this particular, like when I mentioned that I'm gonna talk about Goya to Joe, like this was the image that came to mind for him, and he even like he cut this out and sent it like as a meme, just because this face is so kind of
Cartoonish.
memey, yeah, cartoonish,
Grotesque again.
yeah,
And the other figure, as you say, looks like a skull. So
yeah. I've also heard this being said like as like a image of like the haves and the have-nots, or are we going to disgrace this by going too fast?
no,
Or are we just going to say that check
no.
out the paintings?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, Duel with Cudgels, Judith and Holofernes. This is an earlier image by Caravaggio.
The Caravaggio is incredible.
Two old men. Very interesting image too. The way this face is going into. This is supposed to be like a self-portrait of Goya as well.
Which one?
The old man.
Okay. Yeah. Well, or is he the... Well, which one? The one...
Sorry, the guy with the beard.
Yeah. Because he's deaf, and so someone has to shout in his ear for him to hear. But it could be that he's both characters. Anyway, this parallels the two that were eating, right? The two men that were eating.
Yes. And okay, I mean, I gotta go pretty soon, bro. So I'm sorry to do this, but I think we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, what? I'm just gonna read the names of the paintings.
Yeah.
Is that really gonna give anybody anything?
No, I'm fine with
This is the mythology podcast, bro.
Okay, well, yeah, there was quite an excursus there.
People will be amused, I hope. I think they will be. This will be like a very funny episode for people to refer to. Oh,
Yeah.
remember that one where they were supposed to talk about Goya?
Talked shit for an hour.
No, bro, this is like how people would like smoke weed and talk back in the day, and we did this sober, you know. So I think this has been a very healthy exercise because people don't have these conversations much anymore. That's the thing, you know. People are just locked in their routines.
All right, I just think
That's how I see it.
All right, what's your final thought here?
Final thought.
No, I mean read it.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, I just don't know if this is such a great thought, but how did an artist who grew up in the age of powdered wigs create some of the most disturbing as well as earliest masterpieces of modern art?
I mean, he's on the hinge, like you could say he's the transitional figure between whatever that powdered wig age, those masters of portraiture and so on, and then he represents that transition into, you know, the modern and the grotesque, and I'd say he's a forerunner of the surrealists too, right?
Yeah.
And we can see his influence on Picasso, certainly.
Impressionistic, very impressionistic, the kind of brushstrokes he's using in
towards the end of his life. Yeah.
And I would say there aren't too many prominent artists that we hear about who have this kind of sort of clandestine set of paintings so just obviously the occasion and the circumstances around this group of paintings makes them very interesting.
Yeah, that's the best we can say about any of this, huh?
I enjoyed this, Mark, and I'm sorry I have to go.
Took us 2 hours to finally conclude. You know what? The black paintings are pretty damn interesting.
That's fine. I think that's the biggest compliment some art can have.
Yeah. I won't argue with it. All right, let's stop sharing and wrap this shit.
Okay.
So this has been episode 2 of season 5 of Texting. We're in late May. We're supposed to do 10 episodes this year.
We've been discussing
this season.
What have we been discussing? As
We've got Mark Twain's War Prayer. We've got the whole co-reality series. We've got the Unabomber Manifesto, and
we've got Evgeny Onegin.
Yeah, that's gonna take longer to prepare for.
Okay.
I'm still, working on a couple of other series on other podcasts, right? There's still
Other
the
podcasts are available.
the Joycean reading challenge, and I'm doing some musical stuff with Craig. So I don't know, to reread Pushkin like that, it's a big undertaking. I'm not saying we can't do it, but let's knock out some easier ones first. I
Sure.
suggest Co-Reality, maybe the first volume or the first issue of that famous underground magazine, or Mark Twain's War Prayer, or what have you.
Or things that will happen and we just need to respond to them.
That's also fine. So we'll see how it goes. I'll try to get this out soon after.
Thank you, brother. I'll try to work on a thumbnail for you.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, that's your job. And I will edit the shit out of this. No, actually,
All right, I gotta go. This movie's starting.
I'll just cut the pauses. All right.
Much love. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Until next time.
Stay strong, people.
Farewell.